Hello there, adventurer. Today we're going to go over the 7 types of dice used within D&D. In Dungeons & Dragons, the tabletop game, dice are used to determine the outcome of certain events and actions that take place during the game. The most common dice used within D&D is the 20-sided dice, also known as a D20, or its scientific name, icosahedron. I don't think that name's going to really catch on in D&D, to be honest. Now, to use the dice, a player, or the game's dungeon master, will typically roll a certain number on one of the many types of dice and possibly add a modifier to make that number larger or smaller. Now, saying if you were playing a barbarian and maybe you had a little bit too much to drink and somehow you end up in a bar fight, your DM will be now calling for initiative. So you roll your d20 and now you add your initiative modifier. This equals your dexterity modifier plus any modifiers from your class, race or other features. Now this determines who goes first with a simple roll of the die. And in addition to being used for combat and other activities, dice are also used to generate random events and encounters in the game. Like the DM could roll a die to see what type of monster is behind that next door.
Hello? Yes?
Now I would like to quickly talk about what a natural number means and a dirty number means. A natural number, or also known as a nat, as in nat 20, means you have naturally rolled that number and have added no modifiers to it, while a dirty number means you have added modifiers to it. Now let's have a look at the dice, shall we? We shall be going from the smallest die to the largest die. So our first one up on the list is the D4. Now this dice is the triangle one, also known as the rival to the Lego piece. You really don't want to be stepping on this one. Now this dice is most likely to be used for small weapons like daggers or even a unarmed attack. So yes, your hands can do as much damage as a knife, but they're also used for healing, not just damage, such as healing spells like Healing Word or a potion of healing or greater healing. These all use the randomness of a d4 to determine how much damage or healing one does. Now that's the d4, now on to the d6. Now this one is the humble cube. This dice is essential to the character creation, as you can roll 4 of them, then remove the lowest roll to find your ability scores, though there are other ways. The d6 is also used as a hit die for sorcerers and wizards, and for damage for many weapons like javelins, clubs, and short swords. And of course the iconic fireball, which does 8d6 fire damage. Now on to the octahedron, also known as the d8. Now this dice is mostly used for hit die on most classes. This includes the artificer, the bard, the cleric, the druid, the monk, the rogue, the warlock, as well as damage rolls from things like the longsword, the rapier, and the flail, as well as many spells like shock and grasp. Now for the pentagonal trapezohedron, or also known as the d10. This is used for hit die in the following classes: the fighter, the paladin, the ranger. It is also used for weapon damage in glaives and halberd, or in spells such as hellish rebuke or inflict wounds. The numbers on a d10 go from 0 to 9, the 0 representing a 10. Now on to the famous dodecahedron, also known as the d12. Now this is used for hit die in the class barbarian. This is also used to calculate damage for things like a great axe and a lance. Now for a round of applause for the icosahedron, also known as the d20, the signature dice of D&D. Now this is to decide the outcome of any player action, whether it's attack roll, ability or skill check, or a save and throw. This is the dice that determines life and death. It will determine if you make that shot or if you succeed on that death saving throw. It's also the only dice that you can get a critical success or a critical failure on. A critical success is when you roll a 20 on this dice. A critical fail is when you roll a 1 on this dice. These normally give you special benefits or debuffs depending on what one you get. Like a critical hit will normally give you double damage. Some DMs do change exactly what a critical success does. Sometimes it may be double the dice or something else. Remember to double check with your DM on how they are ruling it. Now on to our final dice, the percentile dice. Sometimes you can get a massive dice that has 1 to 100 on it. In most cases you will use the d10 as well as the percentile die. This has the numbers 00 to 90 going up in tens. It's also good to know the double zeros mean 0, not 100. So after you rolled both of them, you add them together. This can be used to work out what type of wild magic you're going to get by finding the number you rolled on the corresponding table. So let's say if you rolled a 20 on the percentile dice and a 2 on the d10, you would add them together and get a 22. Well, with our 22, I think it's time to move on. Now may the dice be fairer in your favour, and remember, D&D is for me and you.